All right, so today, let's take a deep dive into a career path that I think often flies under the radar but has such a profound impact, and that's youth center managers.
Mm,
We're talking about the folks who go beyond just sort of like running the place. They really shape the entire environment and experience for young people who really need that support.
yeah,
And we're drawing on some great insights from RoleCatcher.com today.
absolutely.
We've got career guides, interview tips, all that good stuff.
It's interesting how many people don't really, I guess, fully grasp the scope of what a youth center manager does.
Mm.
It's far more than just kind of overseeing a building
Wow.
or,
Thanks, sure.
making sure the lights are on.
The RoleCatcher Career Guide, I thought, did a really good job of laying out the core functions. And it
Mm.
really is so much more than just like unlocking the doors for after school activities, right? It's exactly.
Think of it this way. A youth center manager, their job often starts with a needs assessment. And that means really understanding the challenges that the youth in their community are facing. Maybe that's through surveys, maybe it's community meetings, or even one-on-one conversations.
Yeah.
And then from there, they take all that information, and it's about designing programs that are actually going to move the needle.
Right.
And we're not just talking about, planning a game of basketball here. It's about using specific educational approaches, or what we call pedagogy,
Right.
to actually promote growth and development.
So they're almost like architects in a way, right? They're designing the blueprint for that entire youth center experience.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's a great way to put it. And just like an architect needs a good construction crew to execute that vision, youth center managers rely on a really strong staff as well. So hiring, training, mentoring, it's all part of creating this environment that's centered around what we call positive youth development.
Mm.
And that essentially means fostering the social, the emotional, and the cognitive growth of every single young person that walks through those doors.
Wow. So it sounds like such a dynamic role with a lot of moving parts. But for someone who's maybe picturing themselves in this world, what's the work environment actually like? I know the guide mentioned it can vary quite a bit.
Oh, it can. You could be in a bustling urban center, or you might find yourself in a small rural community center.
Okay.
The setting definitely shapes the experience.
And I'm guessing it's not all, fun and games, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Not at all. The job can be physically demanding at times, but more significantly, I think it's the emotional toll that can be really challenging.
Mhm.
You're working with youth who are facing real life struggles, families that are under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
You might be coordinating with social workers on really sensitive cases. So it requires a great deal of empathy and resilience to really thrive in that environment.
Which I think really highlights how important those strong people skills are for this role.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about building trust, creating that safe and supportive environment.
It is. You're navigating a lot of really complex dynamics, and so you've got to have a knack for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it makes me think about that old adage, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
100%.
And I think that probably rings true in the youth center world.
I think so.
So let's talk about some of the nitty-gritty here, the rewards and challenges.
But
The RoleCatcher Guide didn't shy away from the tough aspects of this, calling it, fulfilling work, but also acknowledging that there's potential for burnout.
right.
Why do you think this field in particular can be so demanding?
I think it comes down to the level of personal investment that's required.
Yeah.
You're dealing with young lives, often in very vulnerable situations, and you're witnessing their struggles firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
And so carrying that weight, the weight of their well-being, it takes a toll no matter how passionate you are about the work.
That makes a lot of sense. But then, of course, you have that incredible upside, right? The guide mentioned the creative freedom in program design.
Yeah.
What are some examples of how some youth center managers are innovating in this space?
Oh, there's some amazing initiatives out there. I mean, one example that comes to mind is a center that partnered with a local community garden to teach kids about sustainable living and healthy eating habits.
Oh, wow.
So they're getting to connect with nature while learning these really valuable life skills.
That's awesome. That's a perfect example of how you can go beyond the traditional activities to address some of these real world issues and provide these really enriching experiences for these kids.
Yeah, and it's about meeting them where they are.
Exactly. What other kind of innovative programs have you come across?
Well, I was really impressed by a center that implemented a peer-to-peer mentorship program
Oh, wow.
where they trained older youth to actually mentor younger kids.
Oh, that's cool.
And it not only helped the younger kids build confidence and social skills, but it also empowered those mentors.
Mm.
It gave them a sense of leadership and responsibility.
Yeah, it's like that ripple effect.
Exactly.
It's not just about providing a service, it's about empowering them to grow and support each other.
100%.
Yeah.
And for those who are really drawn to that mission,
Mm-hmm.
there's a very clear career path within this field.
Okay.
RoleCatcher outlined 4 distinct stages for youth center managers, each with increasing levels of responsibility.
So let's break that down a little bit for our listeners who are now like, okay, I'm intrigued. How can I grow in this field? What does that journey look like?
Sure, so typically it starts with an entry-level assistant position.
Okay.
And this is where you're really getting your hands dirty.
Yeah.
You're directly supporting the youth, organizing activities, and really learning the ropes.
So very hands-on, that foundational role.
Exactly.
And then what happens as you kind of progress to that next stage?
So then you would typically step into more of a coordinator position.
Mm-hmm.
And here you're starting to take on more responsibility for program development and implementation.
Okay.
So you might be researching new pedagogical approaches, brainstorming activity ideas, maybe even managing budgets for specific programs.
Wow.
And you're also working more closely with staff members and community organizations,
Yeah.
building those essential partnerships.
So you're starting to see the bigger picture,
Yes, you
where
are.
everything fits together.
Right.
What are some of the maybe challenges that someone might encounter at that stage?
I think time management and prioritization become absolutely crucial at that point because you're juggling multiple projects, deadlines, you've got stakeholders to keep happy. So strong organizational skills and the ability to adapt to changing priorities are really important.
Yeah, you're going from primarily hands-on to much more strategic thinking and planning.
Exactly. And as you continue to excel in that role, the next step, like the ladder, would be a supervisory role.
Okay, what does that entail? What are some of the key responsibilities there?
So at this point, you're really overseeing the day-to-day operations, making sure everything is running smoothly. You're responsible for training and supervising staff, ensuring that they have the resources and support they need.
Okay.
You're also becoming more involved in, safety guidelines, policies, and procedures.
So there's a lot more oversight at that level.
Absolutely. And then, of course, that leads us to the pinnacle of the career path, the youth center manager position.
This is where it all comes together.
Exactly.
What are the defining characteristics of that leadership role?
So as the youth center manager, you are responsible for the entire operation. You set the strategic vision for the center. You manage budgets. You build partnerships with community stakeholders.
Wow.
And you're constantly striving to make sure that everything is aligned with the organization's mission.
Man, that sounds like an incredibly demanding but so rewarding role.
It is.
Because you really have the opportunity to shape not only the lives of the youth that come through those doors, but also the direction of the entire center.
You do. And what I find so fascinating about this career path in particular is that it's not just about climbing that ladder. It's about the really unique skills that you acquire along the way.
Yeah.
Because those are the skills that actually allow you to connect with young people and make that lasting impact.
And speaking of those skills, the RoleCatcher guide highlighted a few that I don't think I would have necessarily put on my bingo card for this role. Like, of course you think social work experience is a strong understanding of child development.
Sure.
But they went a little bit deeper.
Yeah, because it's often the less tangible skills that prove most essential in this line of work.
Can you give us an example of one of those kind of standout skills?
One that really resonated with me was social perceptiveness.
Okay.
They're talking about the ability to kind of read a room, to pick up on those unspoken dynamics between the young people.
Right.
And that is absolutely critical when you're dealing with, potentially sensitive situations, maybe conflicts that are brewing, or even just like gauging whether an activity is really landing with the youth.
Yeah, so it's almost like you've got to have your finger on the pulse of the emotional temperature of the entire youth center.
It is.
You're constantly observing, interpreting those cues.
Exactly. And that ties directly into another one that they highlighted, which is judgment and decision making. Because you might have a carefully planned activity for the afternoon, but if you're picking up on some tension within a particular group of kids,
Right.
a skilled youth center manager knows when to adapt on the fly.
Yeah.
Maybe changing course entirely, maybe facilitating an impromptu conversation instead.
So you got to be adaptable.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to be able to respond to the needs of what's happening right there in the moment.
100%. And that's where, strong active listening skills really come into play too.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just about like passively hearing what young people are saying. This
Yeah.
is about truly listening
Hmm.
to understand their perspectives, their concerns,
Right.
even when you know those thoughts and feelings aren't expressed perfectly.
That takes, I imagine, a lot of empathy and patience.
It does, but it's those qualities
Hmm.
that allow you to really build that trust
Right.
and create that safe space for young people to really open up. And ultimately, that's what allows you to make a genuine, lasting impact.
Yeah, it goes back to that human connection, right? Creating that environment where young people feel seen, heard, and supported.
Exactly.
Now, for folks who are listening and thinking, okay, this sounds amazing, I want to pursue this path, RoleCatcher's interview guide was a treasure trove of insights, I thought.
It really was. And I was particularly struck by their emphasis on showcasing your passion for youth development during the interview process.
Yeah, because it's not enough to just be like, oh, I love working with kids.
Not at all.
You've got to have more.
You need to demonstrate a deep understanding of the challenges that young people face today and articulate a genuine desire to contribute to their growth and well-being.
Yeah, and I was also kind of blown away by the fact that they've integrated AI into some of their interview prep tools.
Interesting.
Like they have this whole system where you can practice your answers,
Wow.
receive personalized feedback, and even analyze your video recordings.
It's incredible how technology can be leveraged to really help candidates, put their best foot forward.
Yeah.
And it aligns perfectly with, our learners' desire for that efficiency and that extra edge in what is a competitive job market.
It's like having a secret weapon in your back pocket,
It is.
right?
It is.
To help you just really refine those skills and approach the interview with confidence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of secret weapons, RoleCatcher's platform itself offers some unique advantages when it comes to helping you stand out
Right.
from the crowd.
They talked about how, their system can actually help you tailor your application to the specific job description.
Yeah.
So you're highlighting those skills and experiences that are going to be most relevant to that hiring manager.
It's about being strategic and presenting yourself in a way that directly addresses the needs and expectations of that opportunity.
Which in a competitive job market, like you're saying, that can make all the difference.
Oh, for sure.
But I want to go back to something you touched on earlier, which is this idea of continuous learning.
Yes.
It seemed like a thread throughout all the materials that we were reviewing, just how important ongoing professional development is for youth center managers.
Absolutely. And I think that speaks to the incredibly dynamic nature of the work.
Yeah.
I mean, the youth population is constantly evolving, their
Yeah.
challenges are constantly shifting, and the world around them
Right.
is in constant flux.
Yeah.
So to really serve those evolving needs, youth center managers have to stay ahead of the curve.
So it's not enough to just get the job and then be like, okay, I'm good.
Right.
You've got to be a lifelong learner in this.
100%.
Constantly seeking out new information, new strategies.
Yes, whether it's attending conferences, pursuing additional certifications, or even just like engaging in peer-to-peer learning,
Right.
that commitment to professional growth is how you stay relevant and effective in this field.
It's about expanding that toolkit, making sure that you're ready to face whatever comes your way. Now, before we dive into, I think, the importance of, ongoing education and what that means for the youth that you're working with, let's take a moment to just kind of reflect on the incredible value that youth center managers bring to their communities. I think it's safe to say that youth center managers play just a crucial role in shaping the lives of young people. I mean, they provide a safe haven in valuable resources and guidance during these really critical years.
Absolutely. They act as mentors, advocates, and even at times, surrogate parents stepping in to fill those gaps and provide the support that some of these young people just might not be getting elsewhere.
Right. It's a huge responsibility, but as we've been talking about, it's also incredibly rewarding
Yeah,
to be able to actually see the impact that you're having.
it is. And I think that sense of fulfillment is a huge driving force for people who choose this career path. It's about knowing that you're contributing to something bigger than yourself, making that difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
One young person at a time.
That's beautiful. And it speaks to, I think, the passion and dedication that so many youth center managers bring to this work.
100%.
But let's circle back to that idea of continuous learning that we were talking about before.
Wow.
Why is it so important, especially in this field, to sort of stay ahead of the curve and constantly be adapting your approach?
Because the youth population is not a monolith.
Right?
Their needs, their challenges, their interests are constantly evolving.
Mm-hmm.
What worked 5 years ago might not resonate with young people today.
Right. So you have to always be adjusting, researching new approaches, and really, like you said, staying in tune with what's happening in youth culture right now.
Exactly. I mean, think about even just the rise of social media and the impact that that's had on young people.
Right.
Youth center managers need to be well-versed in those trends, the potential risks, and how to actually use these platforms effectively to connect with youth and promote positive online interaction.
You got to meet them where they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that might involve partnering with, experts in other fields, mental health professionals or technology specialists
Good.
to address some of these emerging issues like cyberbullying, social media addiction, or even just the general anxieties and pressures that come with growing up in the digital age.
It's a whole other world
Mhm.
than it was even, 10, 15 years ago.
Exactly. So it's not just about understanding youth development, it's about understanding the world in which they're growing up.
The world that they're living in.
Yes.
But-
And that requires that commitment to being a lifelong learner, always seeking out new information, attending workshops, and staying up to date on the latest research.
Yeah, it sounds like this field really draws people who are curious,
Mm-hmm.
who really want to make a difference.
It does. And that's what I think makes it such a challenging, but ultimately rewarding career path.
Absolutely. Well, this has been, I think, an incredibly insightful deep dive. We've learned so much about the multifaceted role of a youth center manager,
We have
the challenges, the reward,
the importance of professional development.
the impact that it can have on these young people's lives.
It's a career path that I think deserves so much more, recognition and appreciation, because behind the scenes, these are the folks who are shaping the future,
100%.
one young mind at a time.
So well said. And for our listeners who are maybe now inspired, thinking about possibilities, I'll leave you with this. If you're passionate about empowering youth, if you're energized by that idea of lifelong learning and you're ready to embrace a career that is both demanding but incredibly fulfilling, then I think exploring the world of youth center management might just be that perfect next step.
I would agree.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into a career path that truly, I think, makes a difference.
My pleasure.